I'd like to thank Ann Kubitsky for coming to the table today. Thank you so much. And you're involved and founder of the Look for the Good project, which we'll get into in a second. But your story is one of amazement, how you started, how you came to this project. So let's start. What happened to make you want to do the Look for the Good project, to talk about gratitude and being healed? What happened to you, Ann?
Well, it actually started with the whale. So my training is in marine biology, and I basically, in 2005, heard of this incredible rescue that happened off the coast of California. So there was a 50-foot, 50-ton whale trapped and drowning in about 1,200 pounds of crab trap lines right off the coast of San Francisco. And she was so tightly entangled that she was drowning. And there was a rescue team that came to her aid. And as they approached the whale, they realized that it was probably too dangerous. So they were actually told not to get in the water. But the head diver, he just felt like, I've got to try.
So you were reading about this
story. Yes, I'm reading about this. And my first job out of college, by the way, was working 30 feet underwater counting fish. So I'd already been immersed in this beautiful underwater world. And so reading about this story I'll have to tell you. So what happened was he decided, okay, we're going to try. So we got in the water with 3 other guys. They approached this whale very cautiously. One slap from a whale that size can kill you. And they started actually stabbing the whale to reach the ropes because she was so tightly wound. And she didn't struggle, and she actually started to help. So there was this one guy that was by her tail, and every time he cut a rope free, she actually brought her tail back up to meet him. And then there was another guy that was by her mouth, and as he was tracing the lines into her mouth, she actually opened her mouth, allowing him to put his entire upper body in her mouth.
So the whale is eventually freed?
Yeah, so the whale's freed. And once it's free, they surface, they're still in the water. She's disappeared. They're now looking around for this whale, and then suddenly this Mack truck of a whale is rushing at the head diver. And this is like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So he's curled up into a ball waiting for impact, and then about 15 feet away, she stopped and then very slowly came forward and nuzzled him in the chest in this grateful gesture. And then she went to the next guy and did the same thing. And the next guy and the next guy until she had greeted each guy twice with this affectionate nuzzle. And then she started breaching and doing figure eights and circling them. So
she's a leader of gratitude, and that's how you see yourself?
So I was inspired by this whale, and I basically quit my career, it was a budding career in the sciences, and I made this book about the whale rescue. So I taught myself how to paint.
Which is Opening to Good.
Yeah, Opening to Good. Originally it was called Gracie's Catch, and it was about this little girl rescuing a whale. So I had this wonderful mentor, Vladimir Shpitalnik, sorry about that, Vladimir. And he taught me how to do watercolor. And so these are some of the illustrations from the book.
And that's your first of 4 books.
Yeah.
You have so much going on, but all of this came out of you physically healing from something that happened to you.
Right, so this is how it connects. So I made this book and called it Gracie's Catch in the beginning. I could not get it published. And so I had just quit my career in the sciences, switched to art, thought, okay, I'm gonna be this illustrator and a writer, and I'm going to get this published, and I couldn't get the book published because this was really based on that rescue. At the end of the story, I talk about what really happened. And I eventually got so grumpy that
because nobody would publish your book.
Right, yeah, that I forgot the point of my story, which was gratitude. That's what brought these 2 species together in the real story. You know, these tiny little men and this huge whale in this gentle embrace. And so what is gratitude? And it occurred to me that I had no idea, even though I had just written a book about it. And so on a whim, I put together these little invitation postcards that were blank on the back. This is somebody wrote on this one. But they asked people to share a glimmer of gladness in a community art project on this postcard and to mail it to me.
Just on a whim, I'm going to just have people mail me postcards to talk about gratitude. So that was about a year and a half ago. How long ago was this?
That was 2.5 years ago.
Okay. And then what happened? People started mailing all over the world.
Yeah, so basically within the first week, after leaving these just in Connecticut and then a very small pocket in Massachusetts where I had gone to school, I started getting responses not only from Connecticut and Massachusetts, but from Oregon and Washington State and Alaska and Texas, all within the first week.
So you're getting postcards and people are saying what to you?
They're saying, I'm grateful for the sun, the moon, the stars, the love that envelops me, and that I can give back to this lovely world. This is what someone wrote, Janet Lee wrote that. This one says, I'm grateful for the calm and the chaos. This is an anonymous postcard from Canada. This one says, I'm grateful for a lot of things, but for one, I'm grateful for this project, as it plants a seed in all of us to look at the good.
So what is all of this telling you? When I was reading about, you've got quick facts on your website, and you say that you went through a traumatic assault when you were a kid, a teenager, and all of this goodness has come out of that. Tell me about that.
So after the first week, I started to get hundreds of postcards from all over the country, then all over the world. Last summer, I stopped counting at about 6,000 postcards. Now we also get grateful graffiti on doors. We expanded the project. And within 4 months of running the project, where I was getting all of this love and I was posting it on Facebook, I had a wonderful opportunity in the Shoreline Times to share some of the postcards that were coming in. So I was reporting all of this gratitude, and it occurred to me that I was having trouble being grateful. So what was going on? Mm-hmm. And as I started to see some of the messages that came in, some people have very difficult lives, and they were willing to share real intimate moments with me that I felt honored to be a part of. People writing about death, suicide, all sorts of things. I started to get a little bit more honest with myself. And it occurred to me, the reason I told you this whale story is that I was this whale. I was trapped and drowning in my baggage from the past. And all these people sending me postcards, they were like my rescuers, releasing me. Because Faith Middleton interviewed me right in the very beginning, and I told her the story about the whale.
About the whale. And
she said, at the very end, she said something like, so this project's really helping you. And I hadn't made the connection yet. So that statement just sort of sat in my head, and 4 months later, I'm thinking, oh my God, and I'm remembering this assault. And so what happened was 15 years ago, I was attacked by a number of strangers. It was a sexual assault, and it was so embarrassing and upsetting that I didn't tell anybody.
Not your parents, nobody.
Nobody. And I pretended it didn't happen. And right at that moment, I was 15 at the time, I shut down. I used to be an artist as a kid. And at 15, I just decided I'm going to be tough. This isn't going to affect me.
So you bucked up, and I'm not going to tell anybody, and I'm going to push it to the back of my head.
Exactly. And so it quickly disappeared, and I became numb to a lot of my emotions. And so it makes sense that in college I studied science and philosophy, which is basically math, because those things, you don't need emotion to do those sorts of studies. And so, but yet, right after college, my first job, while I'm 30 feet underwater, supposed to count fish for a scientific job, I'm doodling on my data sheets. I mean, I couldn't help this creative impulse, like when you're supposed to be an artist.
That you stopped doing.
Yeah, and I was so afraid of the art inside because you need emotion. You need emotion to do art. And so what this project has helped me do, which I'm so grateful for all of these people who have participated, is they're inspiring me to have the courage to embrace the full spectrum of my emotions.
So this is helping you heal.
Exactly. And so last summer, it occurred to me that gratitude opens doors. And so I started expanding the project not just from postcards, because I was going through all this healing, I started to collect gratitude on doors. So I got a number of sponsors to pay for doors that were in different locations here along the shoreline. And we collected all this love on the door, sort of symbolizing this idea that gratitude really opens the door to joy. It opens the door to humility and strength and grace. And so I'm just so grateful to be part of this project.
And it's expanding and expanding. Now you're working, you just were telling me you're working with suicide prevention, you're trying to help kids, you're trying to fight back against bullying. All of this is starting to move in many, many different directions. This you brought in, you said somebody just sent you a bottle. This came from New Orleans?
Yep, this is from Karen Miller, and she calls herself Miss Kitty, and she's a lawyer. And she does this on the side. This is just something she likes to do. She makes these wonderful collections of just different random items that she's put together. And so there's a little turtle on the bottom, and she, I think it's just, there's so much creativity that comes in. This is actually a painting from Diana Lynn Cote of the door that we had at Hammonasset. We had a door installed right by the Nature Center.
And let's talk about Hammonasset, because you're working on your second installation at Hammonasset, down by the beautiful water. And as you walk, you're going to see these postcards that you're putting on, weatherproof things that you can just walk through and read posts of joy and gratitude and healing as you walk through that.
So the postcards come on this size.
Sure.
And then what I do, because I'm a designer, is I scan them in and I present them on weatherproof signage or on indoor signage. So they're enlarged, because it's, you know, this is kind of hard to read. And so this postcard was actually at the beach all summer, last summer. It's going back.
And I can't even tell it was out in the elements.
It's amazing. Yes, it's a local printer for Color Ink, and they do UV protection on it, and it seems to be working great.
You told me just briefly about your mom. Who was your mom?
So my mom, while we were just speaking before this, you asked me about her, and she was a nun. She was a Catholic nun, and she was a nun for, I think, 7 years. So she missed the 60s.
Okay.
And she came out, you know, she was in this long habit, and then she came out when the go-go boots and, you know, the mini skirts were.
So she stopped being a nun?
Yeah, she stopped being a nun. She got married first to her first husband, and that didn't work out. And then she met my dad, and I'm here.
So this is where the spiritualness, you think, figures into all of this?
Yes, so she was a refugee of war in World War II.
Where, from where?
Czechoslovakia, that area. And so my grandfather was supposed to be a Nazi, and he decided he didn't want to do that. So they needed to leave immediately. They were fleeing for a few years, and they didn't have very much to eat. And so my mother really appreciates everything. When they finally got here, my grandfather died shortly after they were in the United States. My grandmother worked in a sweatshop pretty much her whole life, and my mother lived in a tenement house until she became a nun. So being a nun was a good option. You're supposed to give up all this stuff, and she actually was getting more.
So Anne, as I listen to you tell your story, there's a ton of heartache out here. And you would say a lot of people have a lot of heartache.
Yeah, and I think you absorb sometimes what happens to your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents. I feel like as a kid, I took on a lot of that baggage. And so then as an adult, or on the cusp of adulthood when this assault happened, it was just sort of a continuation of that kind of mentality of being broken and lacking and flawed and being sort of this poverty mentality. And so that experience sort of confirmed that I was right, that I was broken, and that there was something wrong with me, and that I was flawed. But the Look for the Good project was my way of saying, no, there's more to me. And there's a deeper essence that's pure, that can never be hurt or harmed, that can never be broken. And I think my mother instilled that sense of spirituality in me.
And look at how this is resonating. You showed me a map that people are sending you postcards and bottles and sandals
And coconuts and glass
all
and
kinds
magnets.
of stuff with messages of healing. And most people don't know your backstory. You know, you have it on the website, but it's just out there. It's ephemeral. This is the Look for the Good project, and I think people are looking for good. Now they're sending these messages your way. You have more than 6,000 items that you've collected from people from all over the world, from Africa, from the UK, all over. Eventually, I said to you, you're going to have a museum to put all this stuff in there. But where do you think, Anne, this is all leading? On top of healing you, where's this going to go? Do you know? And maybe you don't know.
I think I'm being led, for sure. I didn't know why I was doing this, and it just keeps opening up reasons why I should have been doing that, but I had no idea. And so there's sort of an essence of letting something unfold. It's kind of like a rose, where if you're a gardener and you really want this rose to bloom, you can't pry it open. You have to wait, and you have to kind of just celebrate every little moment when it gets a little bit bigger. And I think that's what I'm doing, is I'm celebrating every little moment when it gets a little bit bigger. And I definitely have some ideas of what I'd like to see.
Give them to me. What are they?
I've been working with Connecticut Valley Hospital and the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And so one of the issues for millennials right now is suicide. There's a lot of depression out there, purposelessness, because people are having trouble getting jobs. They have this mountain of debt from going to school, and then they can't get a job, and so they end up going back into their parents' home, and they have to put off having, a real steady relationship, having kids, buying a home.
So depression, and anxiety gets involved.
Right.
So you're gonna do that. You're putting yourself out there, and you want people to reach out to you, and you very openly have a post office box, and it is, and pay attention, it's post office box. We can even show it. What I'm grateful for: post office box 602. It's Old Lyme, Connecticut, 06371. And I love that you have to put USA because it's coming from all over the place. I applaud you for doing what you're doing and listening to so many people that are trying to tell you, trying to heal you, and they're healing themselves at the same time. And keep going. You've got a new website up, and it is lookforthegoodproject.org. So you can reach her there. And keep going, Anne. And
thank you.
Thanks for telling us your story, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much.